Hey, Mike, you ever have something that's like in the future that you'll worry about sometime down the line?
Yeah, sure. I don't like worrying about stuff now. I'll do it later.
So what happens when later is now?
No.
Hey, it's Matt Robison, and this is 5 Minute Finance, the show where we don't try to optimize your life and make every last thing absolutely perfect to the 10th decimal point. We just aim for simple, practical, easy things that you can do to manage your finances in your life so you can get on with the rest of your day and enjoy it. And the czar of enjoyment, Mike Morton, a certified financial planner, is here as always to be our expert. Mike, how you doing?
No decimal points in optimization today. Only round numbers, whole numbers.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was thinking so much about your whole like tagline and setup for the show. And I think you may have reverse engineered it around me and my preferences. I was thinking about this. This is like one of your prompts on this show that like, what does money mean to you? What do you worry about and what do you get out of it? And I was thinking like, the primary thing that I get out of earning money and saving is not worrying about money. And like, I'm getting the privilege of removing anxiety and like, hey, I kind of want this streaming service because I like this show. I don't have to worry about it that much. That's the major thing. And like, if I had to optimize my life, like so many financial shows, yeah, I'm casting shade at you competitors. Yeah, take that. If I had to like worry about optimizing every last thing I was doing, oh, you might be missing out on $5 in 10 years. It would bum me out.
Yeah. I love that, Matt. If we can only do that for all the listeners, what you have accomplished. If it's true, it's like, that's the whole point. Why worry about your money? Set things up, automate, set it up, have confidence in the plan, and then go enjoy life. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, someday, as much as I love the title that you've alighted on for this show, if you ever go in search of another title switch, it should be stress-free finance, relaxed finance, soporific finance. Speaking of things that you don't want to worry about, I wasn't just whistling Dixie at the top of the show when I set up this question about things that are in the future that you're going to worry about in the future. What happens when the future is coming at you awful fast? I think you want to talk about college savings.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a confluence of two things. One, things are coming at you awfully fast. And when you got teenagers, it's so busy and hectic with, the activities, the academics, the sports, and then the college visits. You're like, oh, we got to go start visiting colleges and think about colleges. And you forget, not that you forget about paying for college, that's forefront. Like, oh, I'm going to have to pay for this. And oh my gosh, but you forget you've pre-saved in your 529 all this money. And it's just sitting there, luckily you've saved it and it's sitting there. You got a 529 ready for paying for college, but you haven't thought about the investments in that account with all the other activity going on in your life. So it has definitely crept up on you in terms of, wait, how is that 529 invested? And then we're hearing all about AI bubbles and stock market hitting all-time highs. So people are worried about, their 401k or their investments, but how about your 529 account? That's also invested. And should you be concerned about that? So we will break that down today.
Dude, so real. And I really do think you've designed this entire show just around my needs, which I appreciate because I've got a daughter who's in high school now. And things really do start coming at you fast, especially when she's throwing them at you in a rage. And it's like, it was just like 5 minutes ago that, we were just in a very, very different mode. And now it's like evening comes around, bye, Dad, and disappear. And like, I think homework's happening, but there's a lot of time on the phone. And yes, it is very useful to me to know, when should I start thinking about the things that were in the distant future? And what should I do since I know that the horizon is getting closer and closer? So what are people going to get in this episode?
Yeah, today we're just going to do a quick reminder. What is a 529 account? You guys already know what it is, but we'll just breeze through that. What are the investment options in 529s? You probably chose them a long time ago, so kind of refresher on what your options are there. What is a glide path? What does that mean? When to consider to rebalance and what to do today. 5-minute task.
I assume you should rebalance if you're falling off your glide path. Speaking of which, I hope people will stay tuned for the whole episode, the whole darn thing, because in addition to that great overview that Mike just gave, we are going to get our listener question, which is all about training your core. No, wait, it's about, it's about your core. I'll just leave it at that. We have a new segment today that I'm super excited about. Again, man, you give me all these gifts. It's fantastic. The new segment is called Worth Knowing, and we're going to give you something fun that's worth knowing. Coincidentally, that's the name of my Substack, but we'll get into cross promotion another time. And hang on to the very end for our One Thing segment, which is very, very zen and very, very cool, and will leave you feeling great. All right. With that, let's get to it. All right, Mike. What's a 529? Let's do the fast version.
All right, let's do the fast facts. 529s are pre-saving for education expenses, typically college. So hopefully when you've got a very young child, you open one of these, you put away some money, that money gets invested, you invest that money, it grows tax-free the entire time it's sitting inside that account. And when you pull it out to pay for college expenses many years later, it's all tax-free as long as you pull it out for qualified expenses. So that's a 529. They're amazing and recently have lots of expansions. You can now use them for K through 12, starting next year up to $20,000 a year for K through 12 expenses if you've got those, pre-college. And then at the other end, after college, you can use it for saving into the Roth IRA. So now that overfunding, what's the sweet spot of like how much to put in there? There's so many uses for it that I've become more and more of a fan. It's rivaling the HSA, to be honest, Matt. I mean, I love my HSA, but the 529s are pretty good.
Yes, one day we're going to have like a sexy menage a trois fight between HSAs and Roth IRAs and 529s, which truly has the keys to Mike Morton's heart.
Tough one.
If any of the things that you just quickly rattled off, and we should move on, but if any of that kind of made ears perk up for anyone, the way you can roll it into a Roth IRA so you don't have to worry about overfunding and some of the other potential accounts you might have heard of that when it comes to education savings, we've actually done episodes on all of those. So fun life hack, you can use, it's called Giggle. Oh, good. Yeah, something like that. You can actually look up, you can search in 5 Minute Finance, and you can find those back episodes about these other aspects of 529s. Super informative, as always, and we can cover all that in much more detail. But back to today's, so investment options. You have educated me very well that it's great to have the account, but you've also got to invest the money in the account. What do you mean there? Like, what are the investment options?
Now, luckily in 529s, it's true. It's a two-step process. You have to save the money into an account, put it in there, and then you need to invest the money. And so don't forget step 2. But luckily in 529s, they mostly get auto invested. They do get auto invested. When you contribute money, you've set them up like your 401k. You set it up, I'm in a target date fund or whatever I've chosen. And then every time you contribute money, it gets automatically put in there. So that's super awesome. But you do have to choose at the start. So it's probably something you did like a decade ago. Chose some fund and then you've just been contributing to it, monthly contributions. Now, like retirement accounts, typically 529s have target date funds. And they might be called target date. They might be called enrollment date. And it's typically when your child is going to go to college. And it works just like a 401k target date fund. As you approach the date of enrollment, it's slowly lessening the risk, less stocks, more bonds and cash so that the money is available. And so that's the typical investment option. But of course, within that, you also have choices. You could just do, fixed income. You could do 100% stocks, or you could do your own mix. Every state has a different mix of available investment options. And so you definitely want to, if you don't recall right now what you're in, that's a good 5-minute task. Log in and find out what your 529 is currently invested in.
Got it. I will give a quick 45-second story here that I recently went through a little bit of a budget realignment where I was like, I have a bit more that I can put into 529s. And we get our 529s through Fidelity, which manages the state fund here in Massachusetts, where you and I both live. And so I went online and I ran into all kinds of problems trying to change my automatic monthly. So I called them up. Good news, bad news is, well, the bad news is, yeah, all kinds of problems trying to manage it online. The good news is the Fidelity people, like the humans, are actually pretty easy to get through to, which was shocking. And they were extremely helpful. They said, yep, we run into this all the time. There's a certain way of setting this up that doesn't allow you to adjust it online. But if you call them, they can take care of it. They can walk you through like getting it set up however you want. And I found it super easy. And one of the things that I wanted to verify that you just said is that it does, any funds you put in do automatically go into that enrollment, that that whatever funding mechanism, investing mechanism you've set up. In my case, I did go with a target date fund just for convenience, not trying to optimize here, just because I know it's a pretty good answer. And it was all pretty straightforward, and it was not quite 5 minutes, but it was pretty easy to manage.
Yeah. And now a couple other points there, because those target date funds or those enrollment funds, sometimes they have different levels. So there's like conservative. Yeah. You can have like conservative or mid or aggressive. Every state's different, and they use different terminology, and they have different investment options. So you really just spend a little bit of time making sure, like, am I in the conservative, 2030 fund or the aggressive 2030 fund? And they might, they're going to be a little bit different, even though they're both, kind of enrollment targets.
Is this the kind of thing where if you don't necessarily have that option of like, oh, we can make it conservative, we can make it aggressive, can you hack that the way you can with other target date funds by simply choosing a different date?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. You got a couple options there. If you wanted to be more or less aggressive, you can choose a different target date, right? So you're the one choosing it for your kid.
If you want to be more conservative.
Exactly. So if you want to be conservative, choose something, a lesser number, or more aggressive, greater number.
What's a glide path?
Glide path is a very fancy word for how these target date funds move from stocks, more aggressive stocks, to more conservative bonds over the years. So you pick when your child is 3 years old and you open this and you pick that, 2050 fund or 2040 fund. It's all stock, 90% stocks and like 10% bonds. But over the years, now they're 15. Now it's kind of switching 50% stocks, 50% bonds. It rebalances like every year. And so that is called a glide path. You're slowly gliding from being very aggressive to being less aggressive. And that's true for your 401k target date funds, right? So as you're about to retire, you want to have that cash available. You don't want it to drop by being invested all in the stock market. And it's especially more true for college funding. That once we were just saying at the opening, hey, my child is now like a junior in high school, and you've forgotten that 529. Is that money, if the stock market crashes tomorrow, is that money all going to be there? Because you're expecting to have it for that upcoming freshman year.
You mentioned rebalancing. I mean, at the top of this, I thought the whole point of a glide path that is part of a 529 target date fund, I thought the whole point was you don't have to do that. So
that's right.
When should you think about rebalancing? Like if you're in a target date fund, do you have to? And if you're not, is the time now?
So if you're in a target date fund, you're much more taken care of. And I do think you have a lot less to worry about. And so that's great. If like, hey, I chose my child's a junior, I've got a junior in our household, and it's like, okay, target date is 2028. If that's my fund, it's probably 50% bonds, maybe even more, 60 or 70 at this point. And that's great. I know that money is going to be there for, the first tuition payment in a couple of years. So typically when you have a target date, a target enrollment, you do not have to worry about rebalancing. However, I would still do the 5-minute test we talked about earlier. What is my current enrollment target? What do I have if I'm not sure? And if I do have the 2032, what is that? Is that 40% stocks or 60% stocks? Like, I would know that answer. And the reason why is, when do you rebalance? Same with your, investment portfolio. When stocks are way up, as they have been this year, so far, that's a good opportunity to say like, hey, let's take a little bit off the table, right? Have that money available. And I would treat the 529 exactly the same way. Hey, stocks have done really well the last few years, especially in 2025. We don't know what's coming next. We never do. But if my child is going to school in the next 1 to 3 years, I would take some money off the table.
And where would you lock that up?
In my basement. Within the 529. You're not going to withdraw it from the 529 because you're not using it for qualified education expenses this year, but you want to change the investment mix. So my target date fund is a 2030 fund, because it's 2 years from now, a couple of years from now. Maybe I wanted to pick the 2028 fund, right? Like you were saying earlier, you can ratchet it back, or you can pick, a lot of them have current enrollment fund, and that would be sort of 100% cash and bonds, like my child is in college. So if here's an option for you. If your child is in late high school and you're like, wow, the 529 has done really well, these last 5 to 10 years, which it has, you could take 100% of that and put it in a current enrollment and say, you know what, I'm locking it all in. I've now saved 100, I've got 100 grand in my 529. I want to have 100 grand when they start school in 2 or 3 years. And you could just say current enrollment fund, and it'll still get you 4 or 5% interest. So you're still going to get a little bit of interest, every year. But if the stock market were to crash in the next couple of years, you've locked in all those great savings you've had for the last 10 years.
Just to wrap all of this together in a bow, what you're basically telling people to do is the 5-minute task. Just log in, review, or hey, if you get stuck and you happen to have Fidelity, not that we're sponsored by Fidelity, but Fidelity, if you're listening, maybe you want to sponsor 5-Minute Finance, you can call them up. Just figure out what your current investments are. Make sure that they're meeting your stress level and life cycle needs.
That's exactly right. Yep. And then once you figured out what they are, consider locking some gains in, especially if your child's in late high school. If it's not as conservative as you'd like, and you want to get even more like, you know what, I'm good with the level of the portfolio I have, what I have saved, and then how the investments have grown. I'm good with that. And that's what we're going to have for college that's starting in a couple of years. Go ahead and lock in those gains and feel really great about it.
All right. On to our listener question. All right. This week's listener question is not brought to you by Fidelity, although it involves Fidelity, darn it. I didn't mean to do this. I'm glazing Fidelity today, and I promise I use other financial services firms, but nevertheless, here we
Today's
are.
Fidelity's turn.
Today is Fidelity's turn. Well, we spend a lot of time on Vanguard. They get some love here too. So Vanguard, you should also sponsor 5-Minute Finance. Actually, they shouldn't, because you're totally independent. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. No. The question is, what should I set as my core account at Fidelity? I have 1 year of retirement spending set aside in cash. Should I keep that cash in bank accounts or in a money market fund? Could you actually start by breaking down the question? I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Yeah, it's confusing. So a lot of the brokerages, like Fidelity, has what's called a core account. So you have a brokerage account there, and you've saved some money and you've invested in some stock. This is the after tax. You've got your 401k and your IRAs, and then you just have your brokerage account. And even in the IRA accounts at Fidelity, there's what's called a core account. And what that means is when you have cash sitting around, like you contributed some money or you sold some stock and it's turned into cash. Whenever you have cash, they'll sweep it into the core account. And you have a choice of what to make your core account.
Oh.
So your core account, they give you a couple of choices. It can be bank accounts. Okay, so they'll split it up in one or more banks. It can be a money market, and they give you a couple of choices: government money market or just a regular money market. So there's a couple of choices that you can make when you set up your account, or even when you have the account. You can change the core position. All right. So my general recommendation is to make the core position your money market fund. Make it the government money market fund, currently earning about 4% interest, which is great. So anytime you have cash sitting around, you're getting 4% interest. The bank is a little bit less. Even if you make the core account, the bank accounts, you're going to get a little bit less interest, but it does have FDIC insurance if you care about that. But in general, my recommendation is use the money markets. Simple. You're still going to get earnings on the cash that is sitting there.
And I mean, for this person, 1 year of retirement spending, that seems like if you're putting it in the money market, you're getting 4%. That could be a nice few $1,000s. That's a good little chunk. And you're not giving up that much on the margin versus the kind of return you could get in the stock market, for example, which, can be robust, 10% and whatnot, but it's not like the end of the world. So you're getting something, not that much risk.
Yep. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I recommend for core accounts.
Got it. Wow. And that was actually a good definition as well. All right. Anything else on that?
Good.
Well, then let's get to our exciting new segment brought to you by the Worth Knowing Substack. Now, not really. I mean, I'm not really bringing it to you by my Substack, but people can check out my Substack if you want to learn a lot more that I think is worth knowing. I think it's pretty fun facts. You've got a fun fact for us today that you think people should know about.
Yeah, this was fascinating to me. One of my clients brought this up, and he said, this is a target date fund. He's like, target date funds in my 401k, they're pretty inexpensive. 0.04% expense ratio, right? So 0.04%, super low cost target date fund. But he was like, should I, instead of even paying the 0.04%, should I just create my own using the same allocation of stock, low cost index funds? The same allocation that's in the target date fund. And I was like, geez, 0.04%. Why would you take the time? Like just use a target date fund. And he's like, you know why? Because if you have $1 million in that target date fund, the 0.04% adds up to almost $100,000 of fees over 30 years.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe that.
5,000 over 30 years.
Almost $100,000 of fees over 30 years, 0.04%. So I had to run the spreadsheet, the math myself. I was like, no way. And it's true. Compounding, with the compounding, that's where it gets you, because it's only $400 a year. $400 a year, right? Without compounding, it would be like 12 grand. But instead, it's almost 100 grand.
The assumption in there, though, is that you're starting with $1 million, right? Yeah. Like that's only true for each million, essentially. Yeah. But still, I mean,
still, it's almost 10% of your million. You start with $1 million and it costs you 100 grand in fees.
True.
That's 10%.
That's true. Wow. That is,
crazy math.
That's interesting because it really does kind of run up against the core concept of your show, which is let's not try to optimize. But on the other hand, it really comes down to what's the value of your time? Like if you're willing to spend, how long would you estimate it took your client to replicate through low cost index funds, a target date fund that would have charged this 0.4%?
It wouldn't take any time at all. It would take a matter of like 10 minutes.
Wow.
So but the thing is, then you're giving up that glide path, right? We were talking about the glide path, and if you create your own target date fund, you need to stay on top of it every year.
So that compounds too, is what you're saying.
That compounds also, and then of course the big thing here is you're going to be off by a little bit based on So who's better? I'm off by 1% here and there. Your 100 grand, savings may or may not be a savings.
All right, let's get to our favorite segment. Our one thing segment. And this week, I'll let you set this up, but is this what I sent you?
This is what you sent me, Matt. So maybe you should set it up. But here's what I found fascinating. Matt is all about, if you've been listening to Matt this episode, he's all about, keeping things, easy and, not complicating your life, just set it, forget it, move on. And he sends me over email. He's like, this should be our one thing. It's, first of all, it was like a 15-minute video I had to watch, which I watched about the first 3 seconds.
And you can watch it on 2x speed.
The whole point of this, so the video is how to start your day with some meditation and gratitude and a couple of questions. Spend 5 or 6 minutes when you wake up in the morning, and you have railed on this show against just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. I should just set up my day and sure. Yeah. Just throw it all in there. No problem. So I found it hilarious that this is what you sent to me.
I would like to point out the hypocrisy in me suggesting that you watch a video on YouTube, which is about this Zen Buddhist calm mindfulness. That you watch it on 2x speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, I got to cram this as fast as I can. I'm being mindful here, people. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. I got to get this in. I got to get my mindfulness in the next 30 seconds.
The major thing that stood out to me, though, was I don't even think you need to do all 5 of the things that they suggest in the video. And you just put the video.
You're trying to get it down from 5-minute ads to 1 minute
I
ads.
think if you just do one, per morning for 30 seconds, it's valuable. And even it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. It's just at any point. I just think about the fact that, like, have you ever had a toothache? Like, when the toothache is over, you are so grateful. And it's like, wow, everything is fine now. That's like right. Now that's, and I just try to remember that. It's like any day that it's like, I'm not in like aching pain.
For the listeners, you guys don't even have to watch the 5 minutes. Here you do. Just smash your finger first thing in the morning. And as the pain goes away later in the day, just be super grateful.
This is what people pay you for. You realize that, like, this kind of life advice. I see what kind of a service you're operating now.
Hammers, people.
Me, say the masochist. No, say the sadist. You're the sadist in all of this. All right. Well, on that delightful, relaxing note, we're going to have to get out of here. From Mike, I am Matt. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us on 5 Minute Finance. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast. It makes a huge difference for my show. You want more? Find Morton FA on Substack. If you have a comment or question, please email pod@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.